Have you ever been in the middle of your day, working, relaxing, or even laughing, and suddenly a thought cuts through like a storm cloud? What if I fail? What if something goes wrong? What if I'm not good enough? These thoughts arrive uninvited. They sneak in quietly, but once they show up, they demand your attention. They swirl, they grow, they convince you that they're the truth. And before you even realize it, you're stuck wrestling with doubts you never asked for. But here's something important to remember. You are not your thoughts. A thought is just a passing cloud across the sky of your mind. It might feel heavy, it might look dark, but it does not define you. You are the one watching the thought, not the thought itself. Failing doesn't make you a failure. Struggling doesn't make you weak. Having doubts doesn't mean you aren't capable. When those intrusive whispers show up, pause, breathe, remind yourself, this is just a thought. It's not me. It's not my truth. You are stronger than the stories your mind sometimes tells. You're more capable than your fears want you to believe. And every time a storm passes, you remain steadier, braver, and more resilient than before. Understanding intrusive thoughts. Our brains are extraordinary machines, constantly at work, constantly alive. They generate a never-ending stream of activity, flashes of memory, sparks of imagination, protective warnings, reminders, daydreams, endless what-ifs. Most of these drift by without our notice, like leaves carried away on the surface of a river. But every once in a while, one thought doesn't drift. It catches, it clings, it lingers. It refuses to float away. That's what an intrusive thought feels like. It doesn't knock before entering. It doesn't ask for space in your mind. It doesn't care whether you want it there or not. And most importantly, it does not define you. It is not a reflection of your character. It is not a revelation of your deepest self. It is not a hidden truth about who you are. It is simply noise, mental static from an overactive, protective brain doing what it does best, scanning, producing, reacting. And yet, when an intrusive thought arrives, it can feel overwhelming, loud, sharp, heavy. It demands attention, as if shouting, "Look at me, believe me." Sometimes the content is disturbing, sometimes it loops endlessly. Sometimes it feels so alien, so unlike you, that you whisper to yourself, "Where in the world did that even come from?" Here's the truth. Intrusive thoughts are not your identity. They are not evidence of who you are. They are the mental equivalent of background noise on a radio, annoying, repetitive, but ultimately meaningless. And here's the paradox, the trick that makes them feel stronger than they are. The more you fight them, the more power they seem to gain. The harder you push them away, the more tightly they cling. It's like wrestling with quicksand. The struggle itself is what pulls you down. But this does not mean you are powerless, far from it. Because the secret is not to fight the thought, but to change your relationship with it, to see it clearly, to recognize this is just a thought, nothing more, to allow it to exist without judgment, without fear, without resistance. Like a passing cloud drifting across a vast sky, like a train rushing by on the tracks. You can hear it, you can notice it, but you do not have to climb aboard. You are the sky, not the cloud. You are the stillness that remains when the train has gone. You are not your thoughts. You are the one who sees them. You are the awareness that watches, the presence that remains steady, the self that is untouched by the noise. And the moment you remember this, the very instant you realize, I am the awareness, not the thought, something shifts. The grip of the thought loosens. The storm cloud begins to thin, and beneath it all, you rediscover what has always been there. Calm, clarity, freedom. Why the mind creates them? Think of the mind like a guard dog, loyal, watchful, and always on alert. Its job is simple and noble, to protect you, to keep you safe, to warn you when danger is near. It wants to keep you alive. It wants to shield you from harm. But here's the problem with a guard dog. Sometimes it barks at nothing. It growls at the wind in the trees, at the shifting shadows on the wall, at the creak of a floorboard. It sounds the alarm when there is no intruder, no danger, nothing at all to fear. Intrusive thoughts work in the very same way. They are the product of a brain that is doing its best to guard you, but sometimes it mistakes imagination for reality, Stress, anxiety, trauma, and exhaustion make the system oversensitive, like turning the volume knob up too high on a radio until every sound, every flicker of static, feels like an emergency broadcast. Your brain, designed for survival, becomes an overzealous alarm system. It replays the thought. It rehearses the scenario. It magnifies the what if. It loops the fear as though by drilling it again and again, it could prepare you for a danger that never actually arrives. But here's the truth. Unlike a real threat, a car swerving into your lane, the blare of a fire alarm in the middle of the night, these thoughts do not protect you. They do not keep you stronger, smarter, or more ready for life. Instead, they keep you trapped. It's like living in a house where the smoke detector goes off every time you boil water. The alarm screams, your body tenses, your heart races, yet there is no fire, no smoke, no danger at all. That's why intrusive thoughts feel so urgent, yet so irrational. They carry the emotional weight of survival, but not the substance of truth. They're the bark of the guard dog when the yard is empty. They're the alarm system set off by its own sensitivity. They're survival instincts misfiring in a modern world where most of your challenges are not about life or death, but about patience, growth, connection, and peace of mind. And this is the key. When you understand why the mind creates them, you can stop treating them as messages from your soul, or prophecies about your future, or revelations about who you are. You can begin to see them for what they truly are: false alarms, static, noise. When the guard dog barks, you don't punish it. You don't scream at it. You don't wrestle it into silence. You look, you notice, and when you see there is no intruder, you simply say, "Thank you for trying to protect me, but there is no danger here." And the moment you do this, something shifts. The bark loses its force. The alarm quiets. The thought begins to fade because you are no longer feeding it with fear. You remember, I am not the bark. I am not the alarm. I am not the thought. I am the calm presence that notices, that breathes, that remains steady when the noise has passed. And from that place of awareness, the mind's grip loosens, and what felt like a prison begins to feel like freedom. If this message resonates with you, and you're seeking more moments of peace and insight, don't forget to like the video and subscribe for daily reflections rooted in ancient wisdom and modern clarity. The cost of believing every thought. When we identify with every idea that passes through our minds, we hand over the keys to our peace. We surrender control of the inner world, giving power not to truth, but to imagination. And in doing so, we begin to suffer, not because of what is happening here and now in the real world, but because of what the mind fears might happen. A single negative thought can set off a chain reaction. One anxious "what if" sparks another, which multiplies into dozens more. The brain starts building an entire story. What if I fail? If I fail, I'll disappoint them. If I disappoint them, I'll lose everything. If I lose everything, what began as a single spark becomes a wildfire. What started as a ripple becomes a tidal wave. Soon it feels as though you are being pulled under by a current of fear. The mind paints vivid pictures: failure, rejection, loss, disaster. Images so convincing that your body reacts as though they are already real. Heart racing, stomach tightening, muscles tensing. Each thought adds another drop to the storm until you feel as though you're drowning in a sea of possibilities that haven't even happened. And here lies the great tragedy. None of these thoughts are guaranteed truths. They are not predictions. They are not prophecies. They are echoes, fragments of memory, fear, and survival instincts stitched together by an overactive imagination. Yet when we believe them blindly, we live as though they are carved into stone. We let the shadow of possibility eclipse the reality of the present. Left unchecked, this cycle exacts a heavy toll. It steals joy from the present moment, replacing ease with unease and calm with constant tension. It drains energy that could have been spent on building, creating, connecting, loving. It narrows the field of vision until all you can see is threat. Beauty fades to the background. Gratitude becomes harder to grasp. Peace feels like a stranger. Believing every thought is like letting a stranger walk into your home and rearrange the furniture. It's like boarding every train that enters the station. even the ones heading to places you never wanted to go. It's like obeying every bark of the guard dog, even when the yard is completely empty. It is a life lived at the mercy of noise. The cost is steep. You lose sight of the present, you lose trust in yourself, you lose freedom because your mind becomes both the storyteller and the jailer, spinning frightening tales and then locking you inside them. But here's the liberating truth. You don't have to believe everything you think. Not every thought is an instruction. Not every thought is a revelation. Not every thought deserves your trust. A thought is just that. A thought. It is not a command. It is not destiny. It is not who you are. And the moment you pause, question, and see a thought for what it truly is, a passing mental event, an echo, a spark that only has power if you fuel it, you reclaim your authority. You create distance. You remember, I am not the thought. I am the awareness that notices the thought. In that remembering, the storm begins to quiet. The tidal wave retreats. The bark of the guard dog softens to silence. And in that space, clear, open, and steady, you rediscover what was there all along: choice, presence, and peace. Meeting the mind with awareness. So how do we handle intrusive thoughts? Not by fighting them, not by trying to silence them, not by shoving them into the shadows or locking them away, because resistance is what feeds them. Suppression is what makes them grow stronger, like trying to hold a beach ball underwater. The harder you push, the more forcefully it rises back up. The way forward is gentler and, paradoxically, more powerful. It does not come from force. It begins with noticing. When a thought arises, pause. Take a slow, steady breath. Instead of wrestling with it, simply give it a name. Label it softly. Ah, that's just a thought. Not a truth, not a prophecy, not a command, not a reflection of your worth. Just a thought. One among thousands that drift through the mind each day like passing echoes. This small act of awareness is no small thing. It shifts the entire relationship. Because in that moment of noticing, you step back from identification. You remind yourself, this is not who I am. This is simply something my mind is producing. And in that space between you and the thought, freedom begins to open. For once you see a thought for what it really is, it loses its power to define you or dictate your next move. You no longer have to obey it. You no longer have to fear it. Think of it like watching clouds drift across the sky. Some are light and fluffy, dissolving quickly. Some are dark and heavy, carrying the weight of storm. Some swirl, expand, and loom, threatening to overtake the horizon. But none of them are the sky itself. They come and they go. The sky remains, vast, spacious, steady, untouched. You are the sky. Your thoughts are the clouds. And the moment you shift from resistance to awareness, the storm cloud that once felt suffocating is seen for what it really is: temporary, passing, insubstantial. You don't need to blow it away. You don't need to chase it down. You don't need to fear its return. It was never permanent, and it never defined you. Meeting the mind with awareness does not mean you stop having thoughts. The mind will continue to create them, just as the heart continues to beat and the lungs continue to breathe. But awareness changes the balance. It means the thoughts stop having you. It means you begin living from a place of choice rather than compulsion, from presence rather than fear, from clarity rather than reaction. Awareness is not about control. It does not demand perfection or silence. It is about perspective. It is about stepping back, remembering the bigger picture and realizing, I am the witness, not the noise. I am the sky, not the storm. And in that remembering, peace begins to return. Not because the thoughts have disappeared, but because they no longer rule you. They are free to come and go, and you are free to remain steady, spacious, and whole. Practical tools to break the cycle. Awareness is the first step, but sometimes you need practical tools, simple actions that help ground you when your mind feels like it's spinning out of control. These practices don't erase intrusive thoughts, but they weaken their grip and remind you of your own strength. Mindful breathing. Your breath is always with you. It's steady, constant, and grounding, a bridge back to the present moment. When a thought tries to pull you into its storm, Return to the rhythm of your inhale and exhale. Notice the coolness of the air as it enters your nose. Notice the rise of your chest, the expansion of your lungs. Notice the gentle release as you exhale, letting tension flow out with the breath. Each time your attention drifts back to the thought, gently guide it home to the breath. No judgment, no frustration, just returning, again and again. The thought begins to lose strength when it's no longer fed with your attention. The storm may still be overhead, but the breath keeps you anchored to the ground. Thought journaling. When intrusive thoughts circle endlessly in your mind, they grow larger than life. Writing them down is like pulling them out of the shadows and into the light. On the page, they lose their power. They become visible, tangible. Just words, not monsters. Try this. Whenever a troubling thought repeats, write it down exactly as it appears in your head. Then step back and look at it. Notice how, written in ink, it feels less terrifying and more manageable. You might even challenge it. Is this thought absolutely true? What evidence do I have for it, against it? What might I say to a friend who was struggling with this thought? By journaling, you create distance between you and the thought. You shift from being trapped inside the story to observing it from the outside. And from that perspective, choice becomes possible again. Compassionate perspective. One of the most painful lies intrusive thoughts whisper is, "You're the only one who thinks this way." But the truth is, everyone has strange, disturbing, or negative thoughts at times. It's not a sign that you're broken. It's a sign that you're human. Remind yourself, this is not just my mind. This is how the human mind works. You are not alone in this. You are not abnormal. You are not defined by the content of your thoughts. Compassion means meeting yourself with kindness instead of judgment. It means replacing "what's wrong with me" with "of course my mind is doing this, it's trying to protect me, and I can choose how I respond." When you soften toward yourself in this way, the weight of the thought lessens. What once felt like a personal flaw is revealed for what it really is: a universal, human experience. The bigger picture. These tools, breathing, journaling, compassion, are not about eliminating thoughts. They're about changing your relationship with them. They bring you back to the present. They give you perspective. They remind you of your own inner strength. And slowly, with practice, you find that intrusive thoughts no longer control you. They come and go like clouds in the sky, while you remain steady, grounded, free. Replacing fear with clarity. With practice, intrusive thoughts no longer feel like overwhelming storms that shake the ground beneath you. They begin to soften. They begin to lose their bite. They transform into what they always were: passing clouds moving across the vastness of the sky. At first, this shift feels subtle. A thought arises, and instead of being pulled instantly into its current, you notice it. You pause. You breathe. You recognize, this is just a thought, nothing more. And slowly, you begin to see them for what they are: temporary mental events, not permanent truths. A thought is like a visitor knocking on the door. You don't have to let it in. You don't have to serve it tea. You don't have to rearrange your life around it. You can simply acknowledge its presence and then let it move on. The real power does not lie in erasing thoughts, because no practice, no person, no mind can stop thoughts from arising. The mind will always generate stories, images, warnings, and questions. The power lies in how you choose to meet them. You are no longer a captive audience. You are the one who decides, will I give this thought my energy? Will I climb aboard this train of what-ifs? Or will I let it pass by, untouched, while I remain here, present and grounded? This is the shift. From being trapped inside the storm to standing outside it, watching it move. From drowning in imagined futures to standing firmly in the here and now. When you stop trying to control every thought, when you stop treating them as commands, they lose their grip. You realize that you are not the storm. You are the sky that holds it. You are not the noise. You are the awareness that hears it. And in that awareness, peace quietly returns. Not because the thoughts have disappeared, but because they no longer control you. You can acknowledge them, let them drift by, and then step back into the richness of the present moment, the only place where life is truly lived. The closing reflection. Negative thoughts will visit. Intrusive thoughts will appear. But you are not the voice in your head. You are the awareness that hears it. And the more you practice stepping back, the freer you become. So next time a dark thought arises, try this. Smile gently, breathe deeply, and remind yourself, this is just passing weather in the sky of my mind.